Hatukuzuia. Sasa mimi nashangaa hii dunia. Kweli, wewe uko na kazi, unalipwa na wananchi wa Kenya.
Even after a major setback from the court halting significant government projects, President William RUTO continues to support the launch of affordable housing projects, citing employment benefits for 20,000 youths.
Tumepanga kujenga nyumba 10,000 hapa Meru County. Na kupanga hizo nyumba 10,000 kujenga, tunahitaji vijana 20,000 wa kufanya hiyo kazi.
Similarly, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua supports President William Ruto's move to proceed with various projects despite the judiciary's intervention.
Lakini rais alikuta madeni mlolongo mzima, na wakati wa mwaka moja amepanga vile madeni italipwa. Sasa pesa imepatikana ya kufanya maendeleo.
Leader in Parliament Kimani Ichung'wah supports the government's commitment to implementing the affordable housing plan, emphasizing that the project must continue regardless of the setbacks.
Wakora wengine Nairobi wanampangia njama ya kusitisha kazi ya kuhakikisha vijana wamepata ajira. Rais aendelee kunyoroshana na hiyo wakora ama waache? Aendelee na housing ama aache? Aendelee. That is why, Your Excellency, we have told you from Parliament, and let me say specifically the National Assembly, we shall work to ensure that...
Were you part of the Booing School yesterday?
...work interdependently in an independent manner to achieve what is in the best interest of the people.
At the same time, Kenya Kwanza leaders led by Transport CS Kipchumba Murkomen vow that the government will continue its affordable housing construction plan despite being altered by the court, warning judges against interfering with the government development projects.
Mimi nataka kusema hii kwa mambo ya judiciary, executive and legislature. Our judges and our parliament and the executive, we need a national conference to agree on the things that are national, that are important for the nation and can demonstrate patriotism.
John Matava, Lookuptv.
Now, I mean, you gotta know exactly what the court said then before I introduce the guest who are joining us this morning. This is what they said, that the implementation of the housing levy through the amendment of the Employment Act by Section 84 of the Finance Act 2023 lacks a comprehensive legal framework, which essentially is in violation of Articles 10, 201, 206, and 210 of the Constitution. We continue then with that particular statement again. If you look at exactly where we are right now, then you will say that public interest, and this is a quote, I'll be telling you exactly who said it, in our view, tilts favor of, if not granting the stay, or the suspension sought. Now, public interest tilts in favor of awaiting the determination of issues raised in the intended appeals. I'm going to read it again. The public interest, in our view, tilts favor of, in not granting the stay of the suspension sought. The public interest tilts in favor of awaiting the determination of the issues raised in the intended appeals. That's according to Justices Lydia Achode and John Mativo and Moniki Achoka. It's a joint statement that released that according to them, public interest will not essentially be continuing to collect that levy until you determine these issues, essentially that are touching on Article 10, 201, 206, and 2010 of the Kenyan Constitution. No, they said that the public interest is, if they are unconstitutional, stop it, correct it, then continue collecting. That was their ruling. And so we await, because the president has made it clear that indeed they are going to appeal. When? We do not know. FKE immediately after that ruling wrote to the employers in the country, and it was clear to stop immediate deduction of housing levy from all the employers' pay slips starting this month. So as it stands, your employer might not or might deduct that depending on who they're listening to, because the president said, please continue deducting. We're going to appeal. The courts didn't tell them to stop. They just made themselves clear on this particular issue. That's what we're here to talk about this morning. Plus, the noise we've seen in the president's, not only the president's, but his foot soldiers' campaigns as they drum up the bottom-up economic model in the country. Lot to dig into. Joining us this morning is Alice Wahome. How are you doing? Wangari. Sorry, how are you doing?
Fine,
Happy
thank
to
you,
have you
Elijah.
around.
Thank you so much. Good morning, viewers.
Happy to have you around as well.
Thank you.
Gedega, how are you doing, sir?
Good morning.
Happy to have you around, sir.
Thank you.
You know, we're supposed to talk about this issue Friday, but then the court decided not to make it ceremonial. They just released a statement. And so we're like, okay, let's talk about it Monday. Ms. Wangari, let me start with you.
Right.
But there are two ways in it. And now, since the government is on appeal, there's not a case seated in court, we have to look at this particular judgment in its eternity.
Yeah.
And this is what they said, and I'm going to read you again this particular statement. But they said, public interest, and remember that's exactly what the government was saying, that public interest, that people want these houses to be built. That's the case that the government took to court. And they said, well, you have to extend that order that is going to allow us to continue collecting the housing levy as we correct these issues that you're talking about here. But then, once the court looked at exactly what public interest was, they came back and said, public interest is not essentially that you continue collecting. Public interest tilts in the favor of stopping it until it is constitutional. Who got it right? Did the courts get it right? Did the government get it right? Because the government has been speaking on it.
All right. I will approach this matter from a legal perspective, being that that is my profession.
Okay.
And so, yes, there's an aspect of public interest in this matter because affordable housing, of course, is an extension of the four pillars that the retired President Uhuru Kenyatta had in his manifesto as his retirement legacy plan. But that said, I think the Kenya Kwanza government got it all wrong in terms of executing what public interest really means. One, because you must conduct public interest within the tenets of the law, which of course is missing. When you talk about affordable housing and you are not going out to explain to people exactly how you're going to execute the plan, you know, and then you want to shove it down people's throats, and there's no active legislation that is supporting your plan, then that creates an avenue for impunity and anarchy. Remember that this public interest is something that has been conceived by our Constitution. And that the aim of public interest, or the philosophy behind public interest, was to claw back or to curb high-handedness from the powers that be, the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, to ensure that there is inclusivity of people in decision making. And therefore, when the project is offset without having included people, and then the legislature, the National Assembly is now purporting to do it, you know, from behind, you know, it is actually clawing it back. So we cannot continue like that. And actually, I support the court, because one of the roles of the court is to protect the public interest under Article 163 of the Constitution, which talks about the powers of the judiciary. The powers of the judiciary are actually drawn from the people directly. And so they also have the power to protect public interest, to protect the people. Also, another thing that informs, you know, the writing of judgments by judges is that they have to read the public mood. And you can see it for yourself. Everywhere these people are going and holding those public rallies, the mood of the people is vile. People do not want to hear because there are more pressing issues. And so everyone is left to ask, who needs a house as at right now? Is it a pressing need? You know, when we have those, the hierarchy of the importance, you know that in business, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so is it urgent? Is it important?
Yes.
You know, those are the questions that we're asking ourselves. Right now, what is pressing to the minds of most Kenyans is the cost of living, which has skyrocketed. It is astronomical, and that is what the government needs to be dealing with. It is not about housing interest right now. It is good to have a house, yes, I don't dispute, but we need to do it in a very legal manner, and therefore I actually stand with the court in suspending the collection of levies towards a housing tax. And also, because this government in itself, through KRA, they do not account towards how the levies that have been collected, how they are being expended. You see, so there's also a lack of transparency and lack of accountability that also needs to be included in the petition as to why the housing levy needs to be stricken off.
Pretty much. I'll be coming back to you on that. I mean, you and I spoke about this particular issue last week, especially when the courts had made themselves clear on Chief, and they were quite clear. But if you look at where they're coming from, I mean, if you look at that particular ruling for Chief, they said if they do not implement it, they'll be curtailing the most fundamental rights of access to affordable healthcare for every Kenyan citizen. They said, well, implement it, because we've seen exactly what he wants to achieve. Good. Coming to housing levy. The rules are on order for the government to continue collecting it. But then they said, but that's no public interest. As it currently stands, public interest tilts in the favor of stop it until you correct these areas that it touches on. Well, on Saturday, the foot soldiers of President Dr. William Ruto went out. They made complete statements from that particular ruling. In fact, the members of parliament who were really angered with this particular ruling, they vowed that in the next budget-making process, they are going to teach the judiciary a lesson. To the point that they said, they think they have the powers, but we're going to go back to parliament. We are going to squeeze their budget until they walk to work, because they feel like those cars that are filled with the ACs are the ones that are detaching them from what is reality the majority of Kenyans are facing. Let's start from there.
Thank you.
Did the court get it right on public interest on this particular issue?
Okay, I don't know. First of all, thank you for hosting me once again. It's always a good moment for me and exposure for me to come and express myself and give my opinion to the public. So on onset, I would like to say that if I say anything that offends anybody, please don't judge me. It's just an opinion, and that's what we get today in the Morning Drift show.
That's it.
So, first of all, I would like to start from the angle of the way my sister was speaking, and I think she forgot to mention something.
Yes.
Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, the fourth president of Kenya, during his 10-year tenure, immediately he came in, he started the housing thing, you know, because already Kibaki had already started an element of it with Raila Odinga during the, serikali ya mkate nusu. So when Kenyatta started it, I mean, you saw the frustrations he went through. I mean, I'm looking at my sister here in Jubilee, thinking that the bitterness that Ruto is having is a secluded experience. The president himself, Uhuru Kenyatta, at that time, actually was swearing to fight the judiciary. And many of these orders that the judiciary gave, Uhuru Kenyatta actually went against them. So it's really hypocritical for my good lady sister here to Wakili to be showing and pointing fingers at William Ruto's reaction and the team of William Ruto, unlike what during Kenyatta's time, that was the same reaction. In fact, Kenyatta was an overreactory president, because you can remember even the 51 judges of the Court of Appeal, he refused to assign them, and he said that live on TV, that he's going to revisit Maraga. You understand? That was a direct threat What is happening now, what we can see is just people expressing themselves, the frustration that even the previous government went through with the courts. And there's something you need to note, my brother. There are thousands of cases in court every day, isn't it, that are public interest cases. Go to the Human Rights Division at Milimani or whatever, in every high court division of the country. There are so many cases. But why in this particular is the president pointing out at this? Because what we have today is professional activists, paid up activists, lawyers who spend majority of their time criticizing, fighting government, looking for sponsors out there who will sponsor their attacks on government. So, for example, even with the housing levy, look at who is there, the known Omtata and many other people who are fighting government and who are the same people fighting William Ruto and saying William Ruto will never be the president. We know even Azimio party is not a respondent, is a party, interested party within the suit. So this thing about the president coming in, and remember the president has a national intelligence report on everything, including the happenings and going-ons in the judiciary. So I would like to first start my point off by saying that the president and his team are right, because when you see a rat, it is a rat, not a rabbit. When you see a rat in your house, it is not a rabbit, it is a rat. So what they are calling on is the rat in the judiciary, okay? So, number two, when you speak about public interest, if you have heard the previous arguments of His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, he has been talking about the inequality, and Wakili here has been she's a human rights activist, she's a good advocate, and we know her, Wangari. However, if you listen to the words of His Excellency Samoei Ruto, he always talks about the iniquity in this country. The iniquity that has kept young people, old people, since before even independence. I can take you back before independence, how slums started. When the colonialists came over here, yes, why Africans don't have housing was not an African problem in Africa. It was started by the colonial governments. Because they evicted, when they came to your land, they evicted the people who originated from that land, and Wangari being one of them, and coming from people who are Mau Mau, who fought for their land, who lost their land to the white people. This is where the issue of housing started. So you cannot blame the issue of housing. Let me tell you, Kenya has the biggest slum in Africa, which is Kibera. It has become an NGO. It has become a place where international organizations are minting millions of dollars. It has been written reports in the media, and I'm sure you're a keen journalist and you've seen this. And we know there's people are making money out of the poverty, indignity of Kenyans. So William Ruto said, what His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta was unable to implement, he will take the bull by the horns. And my sister Wangari should be the first one congratulating the president, because what Uhuru Kenyatta was unable to do, William Ruto is doing it. So therefore, I want to quote just one article which I will end this particular discussion, and that is Article 43B, 1B. And this is it. This is what William Ruto is using. And this is what he put in his manifesto. Because the reality on the ground, and I know my sister talked about public interest, but the reality on the ground, my brothers and sisters in Kenya, is that 70% of Kenyan lives in slums, or 60%. So me and Wangari, who can afford a house, can now make noise. Employers and employees, and actually, I just had a mention, you brought the issue of FKE, Code 2. Why are we not asking FKE, according to the rising cost of living, why are they not increasing the salaries? We'll start looking around these people and monitoring them. Because FKE is making noise against the government and fighting the government in this particular matter. And yet, Kenyans, majority of Kenyans are underpaid. in this country.
Yes.
So FKE needs to think twice, because they are part of the problem for underpaying Kenyans, and Kenyans are living in slums. And William Samoei Ruto is a president of good courage and has said no matter what mud you throw at him, Article, and this is what I'm going to read, Article 43 1B, right to accessible and adequate housing with reasonable standards of sanitation. When you go to the slums, there is no sanitation. There is no accessibility, adequate housing. Young children, I'm sure many of the Kenyans here who have been misled by these naysayers, these opposition people who have nothing better to do than to oppose a public interest matter, which is housing. So what do? They run to court. And what does the court do? The court is asleep to the reality. Today, the houses and the mortgages, I want to show you something. Before even the levy was brought in place, it is the taxes of those Kenyans, poor Kenyans, that have been paying for mortgages for the judges. Today, a judge is the most favored in this country. It is the best profession in terms of what you get. 25 years for mortgage. Who gets that, my brother? Show me one person. Even in parliament, they don't get those favors. So we are saying perhaps the judges need to be transferred to slums and be commuting from slums. Hold on. Hold on a minute. Be commuting from slums and going to the court. Then we see whether their wigs will not be eaten by rats, or will not be, whether their gowns will not be washed away by the sewer line. And this is the reality of millions of Kenyans. So therefore, just to conclude and sum up, I as Edward support this bill because William Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza government is within the law.
But just hold on. I want us to go back to that first submission there by President Dr. William Ruto. And Sheila, if you're listening to me, you can play for me that particular clip. Because then, I mean, the question is, fine, thank you very much, you want to do this. And the courts are saying, well, we're not stopping you from doing this, but then we are the law. So if any case comes to us, we have to listen to it. And by the way, I've got to remind you, Edward, again, that even as this current administration blames Okiya Omtatah for taking him to court, even in the previous administration, by the way, it's Okiya Omtatah who sponsored this particular bill. So even when it comes to removing him from being bipartisan,
sorry, brother,
even
Okiya Omtatah is not God.
Just hold.
Okiya Omtatah has a vendetta against any government. Okiya Omtatah is not a patriot.
Let's have
anti-government, whether it is Uhuru Kenyatta, Mwai Kibaki, or William Ruto.
Let's have a look at it then. Let's have a look at it then. I mean, you might call him a stubborn Kenyan in that sense. I mean, if it's or an enlightened Kenyan, isn't it? All right. So let's take a look at it. We have to question whether indeed even the president himself is informed of this particular reason as why the courts have then stopped stop the collection. Now, if you listen to that ruling, and we're going to play that particular clip right there, and we're going to only listen to that clip for the president. Let's look at Article 210 of the Constitution. It states that no tax or licensing fee may be imposed, waived, or varied except as provided by legislation. It continues to say again, that's Article B, each waiver and the reason for it shall be reported to the Auditor General. Hold on, so very clear. Number 2, Article 201 of the Kenyan Constitution states that financial management shall be responsible and fiscal reporting shall be clear. Let's go to Article 10, which essentially talks that every other public office in this country is enshrined within one law of public finance management, that you can say that this particular law that I'm coming up with is just special by itself. So it reads, therefore, that the national values and principles of governance in this article bind all state organs, state officers, public officers, and all persons whenever any of them applies or interprets this constitution, enacts, applies, or interprets any law, or makes or implements, now that's what is important, public policy decisions. It's quite clear. I mean, for every other person reading it, then you can actually go saying, well, this is clear from here. So the president was speaking on Saturday on that particular one. We're going to just clip that part for the president speaking as we ask ourselves the question, are you clear why the court stopped you? Let's take a listen.
Back from the court halting significant government projects, President William RUTO continues to support the launch of affordable housing projects, citing employment benefits for 20,000 youths.
Tumepanga kujenga nyumba 10,000 hapa Meru County. Na kupanga hizo nyumba 10,000 kujenga, tunahitaji vijana 20,000 wa kufanya hiyo kazi.
Similarly, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua supports President William Ruto's move to proceed with various projects despite the judiciary's intervention.
Lakini rais alikuta madeni mlolongo mzima, na wakati wa mwaka moja amepanga vile madeni italipwa. Sasa pesa imepatikana ya kufanya maendeleo, na ndio mwaka huu ameanza hapa Meru. Maendeleo itaanza hapa Meru kwa sababu hapa ni nyumbani.
The majority leader in parliament, Kimani Ichung'wah, supports the government's commitment to implementing the affordable housing plan, emphasizing that the project must continue.
That's it. I mean, the president and the deputy president are not even quoting the law on it. I mean, the courts ruled on it. They say, we're going to stop it until you make these 3 areas clear to us. And after that, you guys can go back on it. They've not quoted on it. They're really complaining as to why they have stopped that collection. Are they getting it wrong? Are they aware why the courts have stopped it?
Okay. First of all, let me respond to my co-panelist here, Mr. Githaiga. And
Yes.
One, to make things clear, I am not a member of Jubilee Party. I am just a lawyer and a law-abiding citizen. Secondly, I find it quite insincere, especially from his end, to really launch a scathing attack at the judiciary, who are simply doing their work, which is interpreting the law, as has been explained by the Constitution. That is their role. And I think there is just a problem with the Kenya Kwanza attitude towards abiding by the law, because you have seen that the Kenya Kwanza leaning members of parliament, governors and senators, most of them are actually launching personalized attacks on the judiciary, just as my brother here has also done the same, saying that the judges need to be transferred to the slums so that their wigs can be washed by sewerage, and and they can live in those horrible conditions. So what I'm just trying to say is that we are treading on very dangerous grounds, because instead of reading critically through the judgments of the courts, we are launching a scathing attack even without analyzing what is the content of the judgment.
Yes.
The judiciary is not out to frustrate the legislature. All it wants is for the legislature to follow the laid down procedures when it wants to undertake a certain project. Again, let me say on the question of Article 43 on affordable housing, as a lawyer and someone who has practiced in the area of human rights and public interest litigation, it is not the duty of the government to give or provide the houses. This article on human rights is actually a bare minimum type of legislation. So what it says is that the government should provide good conditions, optimum conditions. But it does not say that it is the government that should provide. Secondly, it is very interesting that the president and his Kenya Kwanza troops are looking at only one aspect of providing for employment opportunities for the youth. Well, that is good, it is okay, it is agreeable, but there are 2 questions that arise out of it. One, how can we provide employment opportunities through a flawed process? You see? So, for example, it is like saying that I am coming to give you money, but this money I have acquired it through fraudulent means. That means that you are also put in through, my lack of integrity. You are a recipient of stolen property. So if it means me being arraigned in court, you should also be arraigned in court because you are a recipient and a beneficiary of proceeds of crime. Are you seeing that? Secondly, how sustainable is that employment opportunity for the youth? Because once the houses are complete, then that is the end of their jobs. Unless he's saying that he's going to employ them as caretakers in those apartments. Okay, and how many really can they be taken in to such a job? The other thing is, yes, he's talking about, dealing with, curbing the issues of high unemployment rates, and that's okay, and I believe that he means well for it, but there are no proper procedures for it. You see, even those youth, what are the terms of their employment? Let it not be a flawed process like what we had with Kazi kwa Vijana, where the youth are taken to work and then their salaries are delayed. We need to see contracts. We need to see the terms of, engagement, the terms of employment. Those youth are working in construction sites. Is their safety, taken care of? What are really the terms of employment, you see? And also, let us not rush to deal with the issue of unemployment without following proper procedures. He has talked about PFMA, and he has also talked about FKE and, putting them holding them to account as to why they have not increased salaries. Might I say that we have seen it in the news right now that most of the enterprises in Kenya are closing down because of the choking taxation system that we are going through. Most of these businesses can therefore not be able to increase salaries for their workers because the taxation system is so much so that they cannot be able to even earn an extra coin. As we speak right now, most of them are in the redundancy phase. Most of those companies are actually reducing their workforce by a quarter or a half, and this recession is actually going to span into even next year and years to come, because the cost of doing business, the cost of operation is increasingly becoming difficult. We have increased the cost of electricity. Most of these companies rely on electricity. We have increased excise duty. Most of them are importers. We have increased taxes on almost everything, and now I listened to the Minister of Transport, and he's now even mooting the idea of introducing toll charges on most of our highways, and therefore we cannot talk about increased salaries when our economy is hurting. It really does not make any economic sense.
Edward,
yes,
can I come back to you? And I want you to make yourself clear on this. But maybe for the very first time, I know where you stand on this particular issue. You've not been afraid to call it out. Is it okay ever? I mean, we saw what happened the other week when the president met the judiciary.
Yes.
And they sat down, and the benefits of that particular meeting is that we did see a couple of issues of promise to the judiciary. Well, we want to give you more judges so that you can expedite cases across the country a bit faster. You've complained about transportation. We want to make sure that you have that so these cases could move a bit faster. And if you look at what came out of it, they said, well, there's going to be a report that we're going to table on how we can fight corruption in our various agencies, not just within the judiciary, the executive and the legislature as well, even within the county governments, because we did see the COG were represented in it. Is it ever okay for a member of parliament to follow that particular meeting that was done by the president and then come in and say, we're not happy with what they've done now, so what we're going to do in the next budget review, we're going to make sure that we slash their budget, something that the president wants to enable. In fact, the campaign promise for the president was that it was going to enable the judiciary to perform better by enhancing the budget, and something by that I give them. Number two as well, this coming on the back of the ruling of Schiff, which the court's ruling was quite clear. And then, Edward, I want you to comment on the lack thereof celebration from the Kenya Kwanza side upon the ruling of Schiff. We didn't see them come out like they have come out right now to say, we are happy, the courts have made themselves clear, we are happy that this is going to start now, and we're going to make sure that indeed this becomes a success. They didn't even come to say that there were two areas that the courts wanted them to be clear on that chief ruling. They didn't even talk on it. They just went quiet on it. But then on the back of the housing levy ruling, that's when we see them come out to castigate the judiciary. Let me start like this, Edward. Are you ever going to call out any member of parliament who is speaking foul of the judiciary and threatening them?
Thank you very much. I think every member of parliament took an oath for himself. I was not there. And every oath, there's ethics, ethics act. And
but if
wait,
ever,
hold on.
Yeah,
There's
Edward,
ethics and
if ever.
Hold on. There's
Yes.
Ethics and Public Officers Act
Does it?
that dictates to the behavior and mannerisms of the parliamentarians. So I'm going to hold my comment on that because that's their responsibility. I want to focus on what brought me here today. And what brought me here today...
Edward, you running the question, you're running away from the question.
No,
might
I'm
be
not.
an answer.
I'm not.
Yes.
I'm just saying, I don't want to say that...
But is it ever wrong, Edward?
Look, they carry their own burden, and it's already in the public arena, the public opinion. Let's see what the public say about their behavior. There are those who are saying, well, good. There are those who are saying bad.
What are you saying?
I don't want to get
Yes.
into that debate.
Edward, what are you
It's
saying?
my right constitutionally
Yes.
not to get into
For the
that
sake of the
debate.
audience that is watching you this morning, constitutionally you also have to speak for what you stand for.
And actually, you
Yes.
see, Kenya Kwanza and His Excellency the President, this is the best time of this country. I know
Yes.
there's a lot of hardship, but you see, Kenya Kwanza is a government of issues and ensuring that we bring the issues that are permanent to Kenyans.
Yes.
Look at all Kenyans now discussing about constitutionalism.
Fine, Edward.
Hold
fine,
on.
Please indulge me this morning, Edward. Indulge me this morning, Edward, if you can. Edward, you're a man of sentiment. You're a man who has his views clear. Edward, is it ever okay, please?
Look,
That the president
I just want to...
Yes.
I mentioned this last time.
Yes.
And I said it very clear that the judiciary and the executive and the legislative are supposed to work in an interrelated, intercoordinated, professional manner.
Does it?
And let me tell you, the matter in front of the courts today is not a private matter. It is a public interest matter, isn't it? So the government on one end is saying the public interest of housing, hold on a minute, of housing and poverty and people not having good houses on one end. And this other end, there is these activists and other people who have taken that matter to court, all right? Isn't it? And where the court is, it's supposed to interpret judicial matters. However, we have seen, and this is another thing that the Kenya Kwanza government is pointing out, and also to some extent the members of parliament, that the judiciary is blind of seeing about the realities of the people on the ground. And what is the constitution meant for? It is meant to protect and serve the people. Who are the persons with the sovereignty? It is the people. And let me tell you, it is not just the employed people.
Yes.
It is all Kenyans. And majority of Kenyans have no housing. So, to some extent, the parliamentarians are right in saying, you guys don't want to play ball, we don't want to play ball either. All right, hold on a minute. You cannot expect to eat on one side and the other side you're showing another face. Then I also want to say this, that right now, let's move on. Guys, you like hangovers of these issues too much. The judgment has already come out. Let's start discussing what's the way forward.
But they're not.
And the way forward is this. Let me tell you what the way forward is.
Yes.
I'll tell you. In 2 weeks' time, before 2 weeks, Parliament is being recalled.
Does that?
Sawa sawa. And Parliament is going to fix this matter. Indeed, nobody is perfect. Even parliamentarians are not perfect. They might have erred in the law. Because I want to show you something. The three arms of government, we have the first arm, which I can say is body represent of sovereignty of the people, is Parliament, isn't it? Parliament is the one that has the people representation, right? What is Parliament's role? Simple, making laws, isn't it? So this law was made by Parliament. Then, what is the work of the executive? To mobilize and to bring together resources. so that the laws that have been made can ensure that the mwananchi, and I would like to point out my sister Wakili here who mentioned earlier that the executive doesn't know what it's doing. It does know what it's doing, the executive, and it's doing according to its mandate. Then the judiciary on the other end, its work is to interpret judicial matters. Judy, let me tell you, no judge in this country can stand up and say, I have woken up this morning and have decided that this is legal and this is illegal. There has to be a litigation.
Of course, yeah.
Isn't it?
Yes.
So their work is not to interpret the Constitution, it is to interpret judicial matters. Wait, hold on. Judges, hold on. Until a litigation is taken to court,
yes,
a judge cannot wake up in the morning and go and make a pronouncement or a judgment on his own.
And that's true.
You get me?
Yes,
so that's why I'm saying the judiciary also is overstepping its mandate. Because its work is to interpret, hold on, is to interpret judicial matters.
That's it, and I hear you, Edward. I mean, you're right. I don't want to cut you. I don't want to cut you short. And by the way, it's a good thing that we were graced with a lawyer right in front of us who is essentially going to help us. I mean, if you look at where they're reading this particular judgments from, they're essentially just reading them from the Constitution. I mean, the role of the judiciary is to help us interpret laws.
Do you realize, let me tell you something, sir.
Yes, Edward.
Do you realize even the law itself is interconnected, interrelated?
Does it?
The law is read, like now I'm reading for you the law. I'm not a judge. I may be a paralegal.
Does it?
But I'll say this, according to what has led the President of Kenya to set up this housing matter, according to the law, and according to the Constitution,
yes,
it is the Article 43(1)(b), the right to accessible, adequate housing and reasonable standards of sanitization. And then I can also support that by adding Article 53. That is how the law is interpreted. Sawa sawa. And that is why the court, the High Court, is not the end of this matter.
Yes.
The matter goes now to the Court of Appeal.
Yes.
And I can tell you Article 53 supports what the housing matter is. That is the right to shelter for children. And remember, children are the principal interest of this country. So anything that touches on children has to be dealt with. So the judges need to wake up to that reality.
Yes.
And remember, what His Excellency William RUTO and others in Kenya Kwanza government are fighting for is the voiceless children who live in those slums. Unlike their parents who have a voice to care, the children do not have a voice to fight for their right to shelter.
Edward, are you also cognizant?
And that is an interpretation of the law.
Edward, but are you also...
Quote me wrong.
Are you also cognizant of the fact that the same law, actually in Article 201, which they again interpreted for us, essentially said that financial management shall be responsible and fiscal reporting shall be clear. Is that not protecting the same interest of the people?
And that is why I say to you this.
Yes.
You see, a country is a move, is something in motion. It is not set, it is not set on stone. Everything is in motion. So you might be wrong here and you will correct it here. So that is why we are saying there will be a bill in Parliament this week. Those matters that have been raised, like the ones you're saying, Article 201 on the financial management and the structure of which. And don't forget, also the other issue was the operationalization of this housing levy and how it will be managed. That is something that the Parliament will be called back and take responsibility, because the interest of people without housing comes first.
But Wangari, I just want you to help us interpret whatever Edward is saying. Number one, do the courts help us interpret the law as it is? And if you look at this particular areas that they pointed out, all the way from Article 10, 201 and 2010 of the Kenyan Constitution, are the courts essentially basing themselves within their mandate? Because Edward tends to think, you're overstepping. Why are you interpreting areas that are not essentially judicial matters?
Okay. In response, I wish to totally disagree with Edward's position. One is because, as you have asked me to respond, the court is clearly within its mandate to interpret the laws. And of course, the parent law of any country is the constitution. And so from the constitution comes other acts of parliament and other related laws. So all of them actually are a derivative of the constitution. In law, there's something we call the principle of derivativeness. Okay, so all those other acts of parliament are derivatives of the constitution. And therefore, the principal law of any country is the constitution. So any litigant who goes to court seeks an interpretation of the law with regards to the constitution. So even as a judge interprets any act of parliament, they still have to go back to the constitution to see what it says, because it is the parent legislation. Okay? So going from there, the second thing I wish to say is that the National Assembly is totally out of order in terms of how it is conducting its business. Why? Because they have already, started conducting the catalyzed, public interest hearings. Yes. You have seen them, conducting those hearings mashinani about housing levy. Yet there is no operational legislation on the same. You see, you have to put the horse before the cart. Okay? Therefore, we have to have a legislation first, and then it goes through the processes of reading of parliament. And I think after the second reading is when we have the public interest hearings, where you call out for views. But you see them, they have put the cart before the horse. Yes. Are you seeing? So there is some kind of legal and legislative anomaly, and they are trying to do things. It looks like, they are being really rushed to do things, and they are doing them unprocedurally. You see? And it is very sad, because there are, lawyers who are members of parliament. The National Assembly itself has an active legal department. Why are they, disregarding all this advice? You have seen right now, even the Office of the Attorney General is under, scrutiny from the public, because they are wondering why all this litigation against government is being taken to court, and every time the government is being flawed. What is the work of the Office of the Attorney General? Is it that he is not adequately advising the government on basic legal flaws? Yeah. So the other thing I wish to say is that the judiciary does not only rule or pass judgment on judicial matters. Any legal question is possible for interpretation before the courts of law. Okay? So when we say judicial matters, we are just confining ourselves to just a few questions. But remember, the judiciary in itself as an arm of government is independent under this Constitution 2010. And as we discussed, the judicial powers are derived from the public, okay, as the protectors of the law. So therefore, every time they pass judgment, they must do it in view and in mind of public mood. Okay? And as at now, the legislature and the executive are hell-bent on disregarding public interest and the mood of the people. And therefore, it behoves upon the judiciary to therefore read and interpret public mood even as they interpret the laws. I heard my brother here say that judiciary is not willing to play ball. It's not a question of playing ball, because now that brings in the aspect of blackmail. Okay? Judiciary is there to conduct its work, independently and professionally, because at the end of the day, those judges are members of a legal profession. They took an oath of office to respect, observe the Constitution, and to uphold the rule of law at all times, whether it is favorable or unfavorable to the powers that be or to the public. Okay? And therefore, the judiciary is not a question of that it is not playing ball or not playing or playing ball. The thing is, they are pointing out on the issues that the legislature needs to work on before operationalizing the housing levy. Yes. And then on the question of PFME, remember that the housing levy in itself brings in the issue of taxation. And therefore, that needs to be a money bill. Okay? A money bill is a bill that introduces levies and taxes, and it is the responsibility of the National Assembly to enact legislation on money bills. Okay? And therefore, that legislation has to be put in through the entire process, including public interest hearings whereby they call in for views for people to, come and submit, what they feel about that, just as they did with the finance bill. You remember they had a very, conclusive exercise about that. Yes. So even with the housing levy, because it is a tax in and of itself, there needs to be a proper legislation that lays down how this money is going to be expended, and also sharing on the role of the Auditor General, who is going to be releasing, annual or sub-annual reports regarding, the expenditure of these levies. We need to have other institutions like KRA who should be releasing reports on how these levies are being utilized. And so because of those nitty-gritty issues or loopholes, that is where the judiciary is red flagging the continuation of this process until the irregularities have been righted.
But guess what? I mean, Edward, I want us to go for a tiny breather, by the way. Just right now, because we're completely out of time. We're completely out of time.
What I'm saying
are you able to take 15 seconds?
Yes, 15 seconds. Mm-hmm. This is a public interest hearing.
Does it?
Okay? Mm-hmm. So everybody has the right to be heard.
Does it?
Sawa. It's not about castigating and saying this and this. The government has its mandate to implement its policy for the people. Right? Mm-hmm. If there is a mistake that has been made somewhere, it can be rectified. Let's not make this hula baloo whereby now it becomes an attack on government. Like RUTO was doing this for his children or his people. He was doing it for Kenyans. So we should stop that hypocrisy, because all presidents have to face the judiciary. And we know in Kenya, the judiciary has been misused. Even in the previous regime of Uhuru Kenyatta, they faced the same frustrations that William Samoei Ruto and his government is facing. Therefore, we are calling on a fairer ground, and we are also saying to the judiciary, humbly and politely, that they are also not above the law. There are mechanisms that are supposed to look at how they're operating, all right? So if somebody else points out an issue in their house, they also have to fix it before it becomes worse. Thank you.
Guess what? Once we come back, I'll be introducing a man of no say, Fanyamambo, who's going to join us shortly so we can weigh in on other issues that we're talking about this morning. But guess what? We're still waiting to see what the National House is going to do. We've seen Kimani Ichung'wah speak on it. The top of the business, once they reconvene, is going to be talking about those 3 areas. 5 now, with Shiv included as well, because Shiv also has 2 areas, by the way, that are supposed to be determined again next month. So the ruling on this particular agenda for Kenya Kwanza is not done yet, because we're also waiting for the government to appeal this particular ruling, and then before we know what the fate of the housing levy is going to be. Once we come back, was FKE right to all the employers in the country to stop those deductions immediately? And by the way, RUTO has been finding it very difficult to speak in front of his audiences, by the way, in Meru. And I'm going to speak about Meru because that's what we have video evidence of and footage of the president really trying to quell the crowd so that he could speak. Yesterday, Musalia Mudavadi could not continue with his speech. We'll be telling you why once we come back right here on The Morning Draft.
Kiangazi imedhiri sana katika area yetu ya Laikipia. Mara mingi sana katika Laikipia kuna wafugaji na kuna wakulima. Hakuna yule ambaye amesaidika, hata wakulima pia hawajasaidika na wafugaji pia hawajasaidika. Lakini kwa siku ya leo tunasema kwamba RUTO Foundation imetusaidia sana, kwa sababu inalisha jamii ambaye hawana nguvu ya kupata lishe mahali moja au nyingine.
Tulikuwa tunalala hoi. Ukweli kabisa, mimi siamini. Hata mtu mwingine kisi mleta hapo usiku alikuwa amesimia. Alikuwa na siku 3 hajaumwa kitu. Kwa hivyo tunashukuru sana RUTO. Leo watoto wengi ameshiba.
Nashukuru Mungu kwa RUTO Foundation siku ya leo, maana wamekuja at least manyumba 100 leo na 10 itaweza kunuka kitunguu jioni ya leo. Tulikuwa na njaa, si mchezo, ilikuwa na njaa, si ya ile ya kusema iko njaa.
Ya kwanza tumekuwa na watoto ambao wameshikwa na hata watu wazima na utapia mlo, na pia tukiangalia hii ni area ambayo imejaa watu ambao wana rely na mifugo, na mifugo mingi imeweza kuisha kwa sababu ya kiangazi, na tunashukuru sana the Lotto Foundation kwa msaada wao ambao wameweza. Asanteni sana.
Every time you play Lotto, 25% goes to the Lotto Foundation, which supports our fellow Kenyans through various causes. Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives. Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
What about mambo fantastic if not scholastic? Chota kuchota na Hatia Supermarket imerudi. Ukifanya tu shopping ya shilingi 1000, wewe unaingia kwa promotion ya chota kuchota na Hatia Supermarket. Watu wanaendelea kushinda ndani ya Hatia Supermarket. Ndio. It's ni yangu. Mwana tata. Kitoko. Wewe na umeshinda
nini? Yote. Pasa. Wewe nalala.
Karibu ndani ya Hatia Supermarket uweze kuchota kwa wingi kabisa. Watu wanasema nini? Nakwambia kwamba chota kuchota. Unangoja nini?
Magari 7 za kushindaniwa, TV, fridge, microwave, shopping vouchers, school fees vouchers, instant prizes na zawadi zingine kemkem. Chota kuchota imethaminiwa na Hetia's Oven Fresh Bakery, Gigabyte, Mount Kenya Milk, Clover's Food Products, Velvet, Magic Drink, Pwani Oil, Aranco, Fruit Juice, Master Chef, Toilex, Coolsip, Mika, Wash Ultra, Philos, Prestol, Nivea, My Choice, Ushindi, Fresh Fry, Arimis Jelly, Cabernet Water, Dettol, Ketepa, Meta, Glucose, Coca-Cola, Rosy Tissue, Big Giant, Elbins, Unilever, Fresh, Unga wa Dola, Blue Band na Pasta Star. Shindano la chota kuchota linaanza tarehe 1 Disemba hadi tarehe 10 Februari mwaka 2024.
Hatia Supermarket, a world of choice.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Mambo ni mawili: kufikisha, kumwaga na kurudi. Kulala ni mwaka mpya.
Muka we mse. Nini mbaya? Wewe kwani wani vile dereva anaendesha gari vibaya? Lazima tususe. Anaendesha gari na kwa simu the whole Hata angalia barabara. Wewe dereva wewe, mwaka iliyopita peke yake watu zaidi ya 3,000 walipoteza maisha yao barabarani kwa sababu ya kama hizo. Hautatuangamiza tukiona.
Naomba msamaha, nitampeleka vizuri.
Si wameomba msamaha. Sasa tuende tusafiri kwa mwendo wa aste.
Dere Smart hufikisha abiria salama. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na NTSA kwa ushirikiano na European Union.
As the night falls, we come to life to bring you a comprehensive broadcast from the numerous events happening across our 47 counties.
When it breaks, it matters, and each story is important.
If it's Thursday, join me, Nancy Lelima, and my able panelists as we break down the law jargons and analyze the Constitution in a way only you can understand.
The news cycle never stops, neither does time. We cover each and every sector and present to you factual and accurate occurrences. This is where facts win the day. Join me,
Nancy Lelima,
Ian Keitani, Tuesday, every Wednesday,
Thursday,
as from 9 p.m. on The Insight, only on Lookuptv.
Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali na manjoro. Kumbuka hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
Welcome back to the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Kiage. We have an hour to look at top issues that have essentially been rocking the country since last week. Now, for 3 days since last week, the president has been in Meru. He actually completed that tour yesterday at Meru when he got, actually Saturday, yes, when he got to speak about the housing levy. He cut a frustrated figure. But what we've read, and what you can't run away from, is that for the very first time, or more increasingly so, the president has had to come in and stop the crowds from protesting his speech. So we've got a couple of clips for you. We have one from Musalia Mudavadi. We've got one for the president as well that we're going to look at this morning. But I would like to start with the one for the president. He did have a difficult time. Let's take a look at it. Once we come back, we'll look at the one from Musalia Mudavadi and then talk about why is he getting these frustrations, especially from his strongholds. Let's take a look.
Hapa waende na skills zao, wawe ni mechanical operators, wawe ni wale wanafanya nursing, wale wanafanya clinical officers, waende wafanye kazi nje, watuletee madola, tuendeshe taifa letu la Kenya. Vijana wa Kenya mko tayari? Vijana wa Kenya mko tayari? Kazi ikipatikana Kenya mtafanya? Kazi ikipatikana ng'ambo mtafanya?
So, two sides of it. The last clip you just watched, and there are so many, by the way, that emanated from Meru over the past 3 days that he was there. So a friend of mine yesterday told me that that's a war chant from the Meru community. Yes. I'm not going to sit here and say that that was a proper definition, but you can see the president is addressing the crowd over the other side, and this side, there's those chants that are ongoing. There are other clips that we're not going to run this morning for the sake of editorial policy right here at Lookuptv, where the president had to come in and even tell the rowdy youth that he's going to report them to God if that wasn't going to keep quiet, so that he can address them. They are there. There are others where the president said that the kind of noise that he saw in his meetings was only witnessed in the other side of the divide, that is the Azimio coalition. In fact, he told them, wacheni ujinga, they are there. But for the sake of editorial policy this morning, we've been advised to stick to this one, at least it's the latest one. Well, also, as we continue with this broadcast, I'm also going to run for you one from Musalia Mudavadi, where it was hard for him to essentially come to terms with what the audience was wanting him to address. That is essentially on the cost of living. At this time, let me introduce to the conversation then one man who I'm going to say Happy New Year to you, Fanya Mambo.
Happy New Year.
I don't know when it's supposed to expire, but they say even if I see you in September, I got to tell you Happy New Year. Anyway, here it is. It is, I mean, when you consider Meru, people will say, oh, it's a stronghold for this particular party, the Kenya Kwanza party. But if you look at exactly what has gone over the 3 days that the president has been there, you might think it is in areas where it doesn't enjoy support. But now the frustrations from his crowd are clear. Could you decipher for us, why would he get that kind of reaction from a place like Meru?
You see, Meru might have been a stronghold for him, and I would say might have been because you need to look at percentages. Not more than 50% of Meruans voted. Many people did not vote. Yes. Might have been a stronghold for him, but it's also not a stronghold for taking up nonsense, because what people are telling the president is you're the one who is making noise at us. You're not making noise at you. You are telling us things we don't want to hear, and you keep insisting and repeating to tell us things we don't want to hear. Who voted for the other one? Why is he coming and telling us to keep quiet so that he can tell us things that are unpalatable to our ears? We don't want to hear. We don't want to hear about housing, period. Why don't you become the president who does what Kenyans want? Why are we having a conversation about what you want as a head of state? We must get to a point where you become a head of state who listens to the people who gave you the job. And the job that Kenyans gave you is to do what Kenyans want you to do for them, not what you think is good for them. And he will continue having those problems wherever he goes. And again, we've given you executive power to do things. And then you are busy on top of tracks asking people, munataka kazi ya vijana, why are you promising us jobs in other countries and we elected you as the president of the Republic of Kenya to create jobs in Kenya, and you're promising us jobs in Saudi Arabia and Ukraine? If we wanted to go to Ukraine, we would go to Ukraine. We were born here, we were raised here. This is our country. And you're telling us to go and look. Why can't he go and become president of that other country? Why he's telling us to go and look for jobs? I mean, if it is a good thing, you know, the English say what is sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. If it is okay for a young man to go and look for a job in Haiti, it is also okay for our president to go and become the president of Haiti. He can look for a job there. We are looking for a president who will give us jobs in our mother country. We want to live with our mothers, with our children, with our brothers, with our sisters. We don't want to go to foreign countries and bring dollars to this country. We want to make the Kenya shilling. We know how it looks like, we know how it smells like. We grew up with the Kenya shilling. Why do I have to go and look for some funny currency from Qatar and start discovering who is drawn on that currency and asking what is his name and how it looks like? Why is that important to us? This is our country. If anybody feels that it is okay for young people to go and look for jobs outside, let his ministers go and look for jobs outside and occupy those ministerial positions. Why is it okay that a young person must be sent outside of this country? It's not a very comfortable place. We were not raised with winter. We were not raised with the harsh climate that is found in those Arab countries. This is our country, this is our home. So if his cabinet thinks that it's a beautiful thing for us to look for jobs abroad, let his cabinet
go and work abroad there. Those jobs they are telling us are good for us, let his cabinet go and do them. We take those ones that they themselves are taking. Why are those jobs good for our people but bad for them? So the president will face problems for as long as he's telling Kenyans things they don't want to hear. And when I was getting in, were having a very good conversation about housing. Allow me to digress a bit and say this.
Yes.
You've seen the evictions that have happened in Kwale and in parts of the coastal region and Taita Taveta. Why do you evict people from houses they've already afforded for you to build for them what you think is affordable housing in your mind? These people have already afforded those houses. They were living in them. Why are you moving them from those houses to build what you're now calling another affordable housing? What kind of thinking is that? And by the way, I have seen them do, and you have clips, a lot of them, and we have seen them destroy our homes or places that were said to be on public land to build affordable housing. The High Court of Kenya pronounced itself and said Weston Hotel is on public land. The High Court of Kenya, not Vanyamambo Kinuvia, the High Court of Kenya. Weston Hotel is built on public land. Why don't we start by demolishing that thing that is not affordable housing? Because I think a night there is more than 20,000, so it's not affordable housing. First we demolish that one because the court itself has pronounced that it is on public land, and now start by building affordable housing where Weston Hotel is, and then moving forward to the other places. Because if something is good for one citizen, it must be good for every other person. It is the Court of Kenya, not me, who declared that Weston Hotel, and the judgment is there, is on public land. So if we are destroying whatever is on public land to build affordable housing, we start with Weston Hotel. We remove it from there, we build affordable housing, and then now from there it will be, wow, it's beautiful, we can continue destroying every other thing. This nation is not going to be run the way people think it's going to be run. This is not 1992. This is a country where we have the 2010 Constitution. It's a country where people are progressive. And we've been told many things about the sword and how it's not for cutting cabbages. And I keep telling people, Tom Mboya lived 39 years, but they were meaningful 39 years. I know so many people who are old now who were Tom Mboya's age mates. You've lived a miserable 90 years and you're remembered for nothing other than eating murere here and ugali and sukuma wiki, and then you live 90 years. Live 39 meaningful years like Tom Mboya, but be known for something. So this country has to get to a place where we are not looking at living existential. You are there for 90 years and then you stand up for nothing.
Yes.
And if they finished all the available voices, God is faithful enough to bring up others. You saw what the women did over the weekend. And they went to the streets and they said no. And you've seen what the people of Meru are saying. The problem we have is not that the people are rebellious. The problem we have is that those who are being told are not listening. And then they keep saying we are bad. Sasa waliambiwa ni watu wa azimio wanapiga kelele Meru. How many times has the president been heckled in Kisumu? Or how many... You know, there are so many times the president has gone to places that you would literally call azimio strongholds, like Kisumu, and nobody heckled him. If ODM wanted to heckle the president, they would heckle him in Kisumu. They never did. So these people are not imported. They are people from Meru. They were singing Meru songs. They didn't appear to have a Luo accent in the Meru song. So, I mean, let's stop blaming people.
Yes.
Branding them, opposition people, for saying that they do not want to hear. And finally,
yes,
you saw this housing issue. We don't have a problem with him building houses. He can build 2 million of them. As long as you're not planning for my salary, you build them. Actually, the problem where we draw the line is when you start planning for my salary. You wake up, you come here to work. You're here at 4 a.m. Ushapanga, I'm going to get my 20,000. Then there's someone seated somewhere called Kemani Ishungwa planning how he's going to hide for 4,000 from your 20,000 without asking you, and he thinks it's okay. Now you're telling him it's not okay. We are not talking about your houses. We don't even want to entertain that conversation. You build them. Uhuru built them without taxing us this way. But don't plan for my salary. My salary is sacred. I usually tell people it's for my daughter. She wants a white dress for Easter. That is the most important thing I can do. Buy my daughter a white dress for Easter. Don't tell me about building Hustler, this manifesto of yours. Who told you I want a yellow manifesto? Who told you I want a house? I don't want a house. I can live on a rented house until I die. My daughter wants a white dress. That's the most important thing for me. And if the only thing she's going to remember that my dad used to buy me a white dress for Christmas, and if the only thing my son is going to remember is that I used to buy him a football or a tennis ball, and we would play in a public pitch. How many people die in the US without having ever owned a house? Who told you we need to own houses, by the way? How long are you here? So after I own it and then I die, then what? It's not a must to own a house. What we need to do is to have the means to afford a comfortable life. I can live in a rented apartment all my life. Okay? And when I die, my children can live in a rented apartment all their life. Why do I need to own it? And you are forcing me down my throat. Do it, but not on my salary.
All right, I'm going to come back to you. I know, Edward, you have a lot of notes that you've essentially made on it. But then let's pick it up from where Fanamambo left it. I mean, this government came in place on the promise of the youth as the front runners of this particular government. I mean, if you look at the campaigns, they were very popular. They were agenda-driven, the hustler narrative. We'd say it is going to be a bottom-up agenda. It really became so popular. It was a movement across the country. And you would see the vision that they had for it from their campaigns if there was anything to go by. Do you think that implementing that particular narrative is what has proven to be a hard nut to crack for them? And is that why they're facing that kind of reception now in those gatherings? And I'm going to ask you the question that has proven unpopular to the supporters of this government. Is it too early for us to question them? Why is that promise? Is it ever too early for us to question?
It's never too early to question government. Once the government is sworn in, I mean all the elected members are sworn in, then their work begins from there. And also us as the electorate, our oversight duty begins as at then. And therefore it is a continuous process of engagement between the electorate and the government, who are the public servants. And therefore it is, there's some kind of a dissonance that is, continuously trying to manifest itself, and there's a third relationship and a disconnect, a very astronomical one, between the public servants who are elected and the electorate, because the public servants want to impose themselves, their agendas, their ideas, their projects on the people who feel that these agendas are not rightful for that moment. They are more urgent needs. As I told you, there is that hierarchy of needs. Yes. So that is, it is actually a bottom need that is not urgent. Okay? The question of the youth, I must say with a lot of regret that we, the youth in this country, have always been used as political pawns. Everybody who sleeps and wakes up thinking about running for office will always use the youth as front runners for their campaign. And then after that, they go ghost on the youth. And that has to stop. The youth have to be used for their potential abilities. They have to be used for the kind of dynamism that they bring into this country economically, yes, socially, and politically. Okay? It is very wrong also for the executive, for example, and the legislature to go to those public rallies and try and engage the youth. Oh, munataka kazi huku Kenya, munataka kazi ugaibuni. Let me first point out that this issue of talking about finding jobs abroad, and mainly in these Arabic countries, there is a global dynamism that is happening that most people are blind to, including our executive. Most of these global countries now are aligning themselves to the BRICS coalition. And the philosophy driving the BRICS coalition is nationalism. It is not globalism. It is nationalism, which means that in case of any opportunities, trade-related, employment, and the likes, those are going to be given priority to BRICS-aligned countries, including themselves. Priority will be given to their nationalities. And therefore, if you are taking Kenyans to seek labor there, that means they are going to be given peripheral consideration. And that is where you find that most of those Kenyans go there, and out of frustration, they end up doing illegal things. You have seen right now there is an emerging trend of drug trafficking in India, and it is being done by women. There is a documentary that I wish to refer everybody to in BBC that talks about sex slavery in India, and it is mainly done by African women from Kenya and Nigeria. And so sex slavery, it is linked directly to drug trafficking and other illegal opportunities, because our women go there, they are promised lucrative jobs only for them to find that they have gone there to be sold as slaves, because they are given peripheral considerations. Again, this negotiation for labor, these labor-centered negotiations that the government purports to be entering into with those foreign governments, how comes they are not made public? Because that again is a question of public interest. Why are they not even registered with the High Court and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? What is the clause on implementation? What is the clause on dispute resolution in terms of violation or frustration of the contract? So how comes these agreements are not made public? Because that is where we find that there are human rights issues that come up, from violation of those contracts. It's a question of foreign relations as well. And you have seen lately that Kenya is also plunging itself into a lot of, diplomatic hiccups, even with our neighbors in the East Africa community. Just yesterday, Niger and Burkina Faso, they made a communique, stating that they have pulled out of ECOWAS because of the ongoing coups, and because there is lack of support and commitment from ECOWAS member states, regarding the political tension within the West African region. Yes, so that is also likely to replicate itself in the East African community. You can see now most of our neighbors actually, have already referred us to the East African Court of Justice because of dishonoring trade disputes. We went ahead and signed the EPA with European Union as Kenya, yet we have a common market within the East African community. Why did we disregard the input of our neighbors and other member states within East African community? You see, so those are some of the flaws. Who advises government? Because now we are making very serious, policy blunders, serious trade blunders. What is the work of the Office of the Attorney General? I ask again, because they are the chief legal advisors of the government. Why are all these blunders? Where is the AG in all this? Why are they not taking up their job?
Edward, why this discourse now? Every time the president takes to the stage to speak about his agenda and the economy recovery model that is so promised within this campaign. And where are the youth within those promises that he made?
Okay, thank you very much. Number one, I would like to say that William RUTO is actually one of the most democratic presidents that we've had, in the sense that it's not hidden knowledge that we know the economy is on its knees, okay? Even by the time William RUTO was inheriting the government from the former regime, you remember the statements that were made, and you saw the state of the economy at that time. And I'm not blaming it on Uhuru Kenyatta. There are other external factors that really made the economy go down. One of them being COVID, isn't it? And other one being drought because of climate change and that kind of matter. So therefore, William RUTO inherited a government and a nation at a moment where it was at its lowest. This is a time now the GDP is beginning to go back to its level. So therefore, we also have to appreciate again the democratic space in this country. You understand? There are countries, if it was long time days of Moi or whatever, if you did such heckling that we've seen on TV, that would be the end of you. But William RUTO is heckled and actually tries to communicate and try and calm down the crowd. But one thing I want to point out here on the matter of heckling is that the heckling was aimed not directly at William Samoei Ruto. And if you have forensic people here in your studio, they would point the same. There were different politicians who had accompanied William Samoei Ruto. You know, in Nakuru, let's start first in Nakuru. When William Samoei Ruto was in Nakuru, yes, a lot of noise was made. But that noise was being aimed at Susan Kehika, who is the governor of Nakuru. Secondly, if you see and you follow the clips closely in Meru, because that's the latest incident of heckling, it was aimed at Kawera, right? You know, let me tell you something. And my sister, you should be one of the people with the femicide thing, trying to really protect Kawera. Because there is a masculinity issue in Meru, right? Every point of turn that Kawera is moving, these people are always after her, you know? And therefore, I want to say that it is a lie here on TV to say it is the president who was heckled. In fact, the president, when he said that our staki wa Mungu, he was only putting it in a light note so that the young people can relax. However, notwithstanding, indeed, Kenya is at a boiling point economically. The economy is suffering. Right now, external factors of the dollar, that is not it's not William Ruto who has caused the dollar to rise. It is rising in every other country in Africa and in the world. And in fact, William Samoei Ruto has been in the forefront of trying to galvanize African countries. And I remember you talked about the BRICS. William Ruto has also been talking about the dollarization of the dollar. And even the G2G oil deal, even though it did not heal the issue holistically, right? Because there are some hidden matters there that are really a pain. But that effect of that was that because we spent 500 billion, is it?
Yes.
Per month buying fuel. And what does that result to? Us having to buy the dollar. So basically what they were trying to find is a way the Kenyan currency can be used to pay.
Which backfired.
Yes, of course there are many factors, like I'm saying to you. Obviously, the Federal Reserve of America is not going to be happy about that when we don't use the dollar. And obviously, again, we are all, like most of the countries in the world, use the dollar. So it's so hard for that to work at this time. But it is a noble, Pan-African, patriotic move. Then, I also want to say another issue about the jobs. My sister here pointed out clearly that we, even in Fanyamambo, that we don't need these jobs. Which country do they live in? Let me tell you, if you go out there today and you say, how many of you are unemployed? 80%. Because what we have is underemployment. Okay? If you can get better opportunities abroad, why not go abroad? You know, they're criticizing the Kenya government. It's like we don't know the remittances. Let's come to the remittances. We are getting more remittances in the GDP right today. Agriculture was the leading contributor to the GDP, but today it's the remittances. And what are those? It's not slavery, it is the hard work. You know, in fact, it's like you're insulting Kenyans. Kenyans are very intelligent and they're very skilled and hardworking. And in fact, the Kenyan workers and the labor force is in demand, isn't it? Globally, they're in demand. That's why Saudi Arabia is asking for nurses. That's why Canada is doing deals with us, bilaterals. And so I want to point out a few issues because she touched on the foreign policy and the bilaterals that are being signed. My God, a lawyer like her of her repute. So how do you want other countries to relate? It is through agreements. And who told you those agreements are not public? Wait, madam. It is not public document like a tender. It is something you apply for. If you want to see what the bilateral is, isn't it? You go to the Foreign Affairs and do a letter. It is not a document that is thrown away everywhere like a receipt of a supermarket. Therefore, it is wrong for her to point out that. The government has procedure, the government has a system, and the government also, who told you? The government is there to enable Kenyans' potential to be exploited. The government is there to ensure that jobs are created. Whether, let me ask you a question, my sister. Why do people work? Why do you get a job my brother Simba? Why are you employed here? Why is Fanyamambo a lawyer? He has a profession so that he can do one basic thing. Enjoy a livelihood, isn't it? And what does a livelihood entail? Housing. My brother here, I don't know where he lives and I don't want to be personal, but I'm sure he doesn't live in a slum. For him to say that he doesn't care whether his daughter or his son will get a house, that is a lie. I'm sure this man is saving up for his children. Let us not misuse the poor Kenyans. Poor Kenyans have been misused by every regime. And that is why you see there was a dynasty and hustler fight. And even though that fight was, the dynasties were brought down round one, the dynasties have not gone down, and you can see clearly the dynasties speak here saying that a house doesn't matter. That is a lie. Houses matter, and it is a right within the constitution. Because if houses didn't matter, we would be living in the forest. But we don't. We live in houses. And then again, you have to understand by ratio capacity per person, how many people have houses, even decent houses, whether it's rented or whether it's owned. Very few. Very few, isn't it? It's just like asking yourself, how many Kenyans have degrees today? They say it's less than 5%. So the bourgeois of Kenya here acting like activists, and just their main thing is to fight the government of William Samoei Ruto, their time is up. The other thing is this. There are certain things that the manifesto, and I know my sister said, oh, who wants a yellow manifesto? It's like now you're beginning to insult someone intellectually. Azimio, where you were, they had a manifesto. Yes, I remember you. I was there myself and I left because of the shenanigans that went on there. Let me tell you, Azimio itself had the same plans that you're seeing here being played out by Kenya Kwanza. They had a plan on housing, similar. Read their manifesto, similar. But now the hypocrites are the loudest in the market. They had an issue with social health care. In fact, the Azimio manifesto was going to turn Kenya into a socialist nation and taking it away from where we've been. And you know what a socialist nation does to nations. Therefore, there is no need of using the issue of the housing and trying to claim that Ruto is wrong and all this. No. He's doing this for the purpose of Kenyans. Kibaki tried it, he failed. Uhuru tried it, he failed. William Ruto will succeed, and that is the resolve we need of a president. Let me finish by saying this. The trade disputes that my sister talked about, come on. That is why WTO is there. That is why the East African Court is there. Even you, if you're married today and you have a dispute with your husband, there is a mediation. There is a way you talk about it. So for East Africa taking Kenya to court and saying that they went against a certain breach, that is something we can talk, bilaterals, and we can agree. In fact, I want to point out to her, just recently they were making noise about the KQ decision, where the KQ was not able to land at Dar es Salaam airport. You remember that last week? There was an issue on that. But what happened? It is not how who solved it or Fanyamambo. It is the government of Kenya and the government of Tanzania. Therefore, just to conclude, therefore, it is normal. We know Fanyamambo is an anti-government activist, and he will always say, in fact, last week you were trending because of the way you were speaking. But I just want to ask you as an individual, what have you done for Kenyans? Are you a leader?
Yes. But I like for you, just even as you respond to that, Fanyamambo. But the question that I put to him is the promise for the youth, because indeed, even this was making noise, then we'll be making noise in front of the president. The promise for the youth, has it been met so far since he came into power? Even as you respond to him, quickly before we move on to Wangari.
First, I think you need to be kind enough to give him a very hot cup of coffee. He's doing a hard job of trying to defend this government. He needs some coffee. I'm glad he doesn't live on Thika Road. Because he would need somebody using a different brain to help him cross Thika Road. If he used this one to cross Thika Road, it would be a disaster. He started by speaking about democracy. I have moved from democracy to governance. Democracy will give you Selassie for MP. Then let's talk about governance after Selassie has become MP. So Kenyans need to move from that space of democracy. We left that. After the 2010 constitution, we got democracy. We are happy with it. And we need to start asking hard questions. Now that we have democracy, are we happy? And now start telling Kenyans that you don't elect some of these leaders that we elect and say that democracy is a good thing. This is not the age to speak about democracy. That's an achievement we made in 2010 and we made very successfully. This is a point to start speaking about governance. That it's very democratic here and you choose a rat to become your member of parliament or whatever, or an MCA who has no idea what happens where. But that's democracy. It gives you what you want.
Yes.
It gives everybody an equal opportunity. But we have to grow from democracy to governance. And this is where the problem is. We have politicians. They became leaders. But do they have leadership qualities? The answer is no. He said that agriculture was once leading as the foreign income exchange earner for this country.
Yes.
And now it is money coming from abroad. Why is agriculture not doing well? Because of something called kakistocracy. It's a system of governance where you choose the worst people and give them positions of leadership. And then you start wondering why things... You know, in Malaysia, for them to become what they became, they embraced what we call meritocracy. You choose the best brains in the country. You give them positions of leadership, and then you get results. Our agriculture docket is under CS Mythical Inturi. What do you expect? Have you seen something new? When we have cabinet secretaries like Michuki, you would hear changes, you would hear things, because Michuki's mind is able to come up with something. When we had Matiangi, buses changed color, they became yellow. Exams had a different way. Mambo ya kuiba exams ikaisha. We had containers, because Matiangi's mind is capable of fathoming something that would bring change. But when you take Mythical Inturi and make him CS for trade, and start wondering why money coming from abroad is doing agriculture is doing better than agriculture. The problem is right there. Kakistocracy. You don't take the best, you take the worst. Why is Aisha Jumwa right now in a country of very educated people? Why is she cabinet secretary? What new thing has she said? We are talking about labor. Who in this room knows the CS for labor? Who knows her? Who knows him? Who knows her? Who can tell us the name of the CS for labor? Give us a pronouncement that has been made by the CS for labor of late about labor in this country. And then you're wondering what's wrong with Kenya. How many Kenyans know the CS for labor without Googling where you're sitting in your sitting room? Tell us who the CS for labor is. Then that's when you begin to understand where the problem is and what is hitting this country. Saudi is asking for our nurses. We need them more. Trust you me, go to Mama Lucy Hospital. Go to our hospitals. We need nursing care more than those other countries. You know, you're talking of people living here who go and get employed in a factory that makes handkerchiefs. Then those handkerchiefs are brought to us. For every 10 shillings a Kenyan earns, they spend 5 outside this country. Look at us in this room. How many are wearing clothes made in Kenya? The bulk of 60 years after independence, we are not making our own t-shirts. We're not making our own socks. For crying out loud, we are not making our own underwear. I'm afraid to even shout on TV. We are importing that. So then you take our Kenyans to go to that factory that makes that item of clothing that we are importing here. Instead of finding a way, don't overtax Kenyans. Tax these imports. Tax them so heavily that we shall end up making our own clothes and our own everything. That's the only way to grow this country. Decent houses. Now, the 1,000 people you have thrown out in Taita Taveta, they must be in very decent houses under trees right now. Those are the most decent. And those who are sheltering under caves, they found even more decent houses than what they had. What's your definition of decent? I wanted to live in a small house with my chicken outside, and I wanted to go and give them maize. Who told you I want a high-rising building with a toilet that I flush from up there so that you can call it decent? When we said that Kenyans need housing, it is fine for you to build housing. But please, not by raiding our salaries. and not by throwing Kenyans out on the streets. There is a problem with how this is done. He said that Uhuru failed in housing. He failed so terribly that RUTO is launching the houses that Uhuru had failed in doing. In fact, all the houses he has launched until now, because Zaki Yaisha, were built by Uhuru. Look at the ones he's launched. You have the clips. Who built them? Wamezijenga overnight. So he failed so horribly that the Kenya Kwanza administration had to come and launch those horribly failed houses. I think it's extremely important for us to be careful. And then people keep asking, Wanyamambo, you're speaking so much, what have you done for this country? We are giving them suggestions that they don't listen to. When you get the wrong people and put them to head a ministry, somebody who cannot head a cattle deal, and then you come and start wondering why we don't have results, what do you expect? Right now I heard them saying they want to privatize parastatals, but why? All that Kenya needed was to get the best CEOs in this country who are doing very well in other companies and tell them, take KICC, take Kenya Pipeline Company, take this, and you will see results. But what we've done, we've put the wrong people at the top. I keep saying in some sectors like energy, it is possible to have a board meeting, a complete board meeting in a language that is not the national language. And then you are wondering what's bedeviling us with energy. The dams are full. We've had a lot of rain, but our electricity is very expensive. Why is it expensive? Because some of these decisions can actually be made in mother tongue in a language somewhere, and you know which language they use when they sit there. Because the entire composition of the top hierarchy of the energy sector speaks that one language. And then it appears that it is okay for a country to be that way. It is wrong. And I need to tell him, please, stop defending what is wrong. You need to get to a point when you tell yourself, wait a minute, my consciousness cannot allow me to continue defending the undefendable.
That's it. Wangari, let me throw you in the deep end as well. Just quickly, we summarize on this particular issue before we move and touch on other issues that I wanted us to quickly touch on. The problem is not that there are promises. And if we hear now what the public sentiment is that we know you already told us what you want to do. We haven't seen it. Can we actually say it? Well, from when you said that, have you seen something that you can report and say, well, at least on this one they're pushing it correctly?
I'm afraid to say I haven't seen anything, unless anything comes by through the pipeline. Mm-hmm. And of course, reading by the current mood, I think the only thing we are waiting for is a proper and exclusive address on the cost of living, as well as the choking taxation system. That is exactly what myself and other millions of Kenyans are waiting to hear, because it is the most pressing and urgent need for all of us now.
And I'm sorry, Wangari, I'm really sorry. We can't continue without essentially looking at it. Because Edward said the reason as to why majority of what we've been seeing this heckling is because they've not been essentially heckling the president. Just reserve your points. Sheila, if you can, please, can you pull up the clip for Musalia Mudavadi so we can see exactly how he completely failed to address an audience, had to essentially drop his speech and then just to talk to them on the side before he can continue that, and take it all the way to the last part of it when the audience essentially started heckling him. And this is essentially what the public outcry is right now. Let's take a look at it. Once we come back, then Wangari, you clear your sentiments before we jump to the Haiti issues. Let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at it.
Agenda yetu, agenda ya Kenya Kwanza, as much as it may have the challenges, our agenda is to revive the economy. Mimi niseme hapa ati nitoe hesabu ya yale tuliona, ya yale tulipata wakati tulichukua serikali, mutashangaa. But that shall be for another day. Because the debt levels, the debt margin, shida ambayo tulipata, shimo ambayo iko pale, I can tell you it is a very serious matter. Na tutoka kwa shimo, we must stop digging. And to stop digging, we will have to go through some difficulty, because we have to stop digging and be able to revive the economy. And I appreciate the young people who are speaking. It's a tight moment. It's a difficult moment. It's a difficult moment, no doubt about it. But I can assure you that we shall not abandon the good cause and we shall not deviate from focusing on what is required. Hata ukiwa mgonjwa, you must take the medicine. And some of the medicine sometimes is bitter. Sometimes it's painful. But if we have to heal, if we have to recover from the illness, we shall have moments when we swallow that bitter pill. Wakati tulichukua serikali, mimi nilikuwa mmoja wa kwanza kuwaambia kwamba tutakuwa na shida. Nilisema hivyo. Nilisema kwamba mimi kama mmoja ambaye alikuwa Minister for Finance katika taifa letu la Kenya, nilikuwa nimeona hesabu ya taifa letu na nikajua kwamba kuna madeni mazito na shida itakuja, na hiyo shida kulipa itatuumiza sisi wote. I said this and I repeat it here and I say there is no walk in the park. Tutaumia, lakini we shall succeed. There is hope at the end of the road. Hiyo sawa sawa. And I like this debate. I like the debate.
He made a call.
That at that point when he's explaining the state of the economy, yes, and just how pinching it is, and how I mean, he's essentially saying we have not made a step. We are trying, but it's very difficult. That's Musalia becoming as honest as he can be. That's Musalia saying that this government, the way it is right now, things are very difficult. But then he's saying, we're going to keep on trying. We're not going to abandon the good cause. We know we haven't. Is that what people don't want to hear?
You know, Elijah, there is a saying in philosophy that says that once you're down a rabbit hole, yes, you don't keep digging in. Because the more you dig in, the more you plunge yourself, and there is more need to keep digging in, and you don't know, the tunnel where it's going to end to.
Yes.
And therefore, I would expect, especially for him being a veteran politician and an experienced minister in previous governments, for them to do what we call governance regression. Where did the rain start beating us? What is ailing us? How comes the more we progress, the more we are finding it very difficult to address economic problems? Is it the state of corruption? How do we deal with it? All the squandered monies, all the squandered properties. Now he is the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Why can't he get into an agreement with those foreign governments where the stolen monies have been stashed, that money be repatriated into our country and injected into our economy to support industrialization, so that we are going to build this economy from within, yes, and not expecting people to come to our aid and employ our youth and employ our people. Going back to what Githaiga said here about the job question, I did not say that we don't need the jobs. We do need the jobs, but what are the procedures for procuring these jobs? That is where my problem is. Everything in this country has to be done procedurally for the good results and for the good fruits to be seen. There is something about the visas, and I would want to do a direct contrast between Kenya and most countries in West Africa. Of course, you know which country I'm talking about. You know that for anyone to gain a visa, especially to the Schengen area, to USA, to European Union countries, your country must have a very good record in terms of security and labor reputation, international labor reputation. So this, the very many highlighted issues of irregular, labor, irregular jobs that are, Kenyans are accessing abroad. That is actually putting us at a very stringent position in terms of issuance of visas, yes, to these countries, and also the credibility of our passport. Yeah, so that's why the more I keep talking about, regularization and doing things the right way, I am looking at it not only from a local or national perspective, but also from a global reputation perspective. because those two are intertwined. To talk about it also, let me say that on the question of the dollarization, that is a pipe dream. It is not going to happen in our lifetime. Why? Because the dollar reserve, the IMF and the World Bank have created very strong institutions that it is going to take the BRICS system very many of dinosaur years for them to, deconstruct those years. I mean, to deconstruct the gains that have been made by the World Bank and the IMF.
Yes.
So where we are as at right now, because we are not, strong to face them head on, and I do not wish that we go that side, then we have to look for a way of, cooperating with them. So what I would suggest is that, for example, the Minister of Treasury and the Minister for Foreign Affairs, they take a trip and negotiate debt repayment. Right now, the dollar is not friendly to us. So what they can do is, renegotiate the terms of debt repayment. Let us pay the debt as at that time when we borrowed the loan, yes, the dollar at that time how it was trading, so that it is fair to both of us. And when we retract it that way, then it is going to make a lot of economic sense. Secondly, let me just say that I am not privileged to be a member of the dynasty. I am just a humble Kenyan who is trying to make ends meet. And therefore, I do not wish to be identified as a dynasty. Also, I was not in Azimio. I am just a private citizen who is just exercising proper oversight over government, through checks and balances. Also, let me just say that it is good to be, socialistic in some aspects. Why? Because right now, as at our economic position as a country, we need a lot of socialism and socialistic ideologies for us to bridge the economic disparity between, the wealthy and the not very wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the gap of the middle class and the wealthy is thinning by the day, and therefore most people in the populace are, joining the low class level, and you can actually see it translated even to the need for bursaries right now. It is a hot issue because most people have exited that bracket of middle class and are now in the lower class caste. And therefore, for us to bridge that astronomical gap, it is good to have those socialistic policies, especially in assessment and access to social amenities like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wish that we jump into just the conclusion part of our conversation this morning.
Yes.
We have 4 minutes left. Edward, I'm just going to give you just a minute again. On this particular issue for Haiti as well, I can see your T-shirt is on Haiti.
We are supporting.
But it is a burning issue.
The deployment of Haiti.
Could you take a minute? Just take a minute on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
First, I want to show Kenyans that number one, Kenya going to Haiti is not a matter that William RUTO made a decision. All right? We live in a global society. We live in a society whereby we have United Nations. And global peace and security is determined by the United Nations Security Council. The United Nations Security Council made a resolution 2699 requesting member states to intervene on behalf of Haiti. Haiti historically was the first African black country to fight against slavery, to defeat the Europeans and the white person during that time. Haiti is the country that defeated Napoleon, the French revolutionist man. Haiti was the first black independent nation and after colonization. Haiti is a country that inspired the Mau Mau, inspired the freedom fight for Kenya. The situation today in Haiti, following the assassination and removal of the president of Haiti in 2021, left the country without governance and law and order. Haiti is the same country that experienced an earthquake very recently, very bad earthquake. Haiti experienced a cyclone and a hurricane. We have not seen anywhere any attempt to look at the issue for Haiti. This is the first time we are taking a Pan-African and African approach towards this. And I also want to say that Kenya has participated in many peacekeeping missions. And even in this judgment that was made by the Judge Mwita, and we totally disagree with that judgment, because global international peace and security supersedes this local court. Because in its wisdom, the United Nations Security Council passed that resolution. Antigua, Jamaica, Burundi, Suriname, Barbados, there are more than 10 countries going to Haiti for the same mission. So now, the Judge Mwita has come up with this judgment and has stopped and is actually tampering with Kenya's position globally. I was reading before, international peace and security must come first before anything else. And these are the same noise that we had during when Kenya was going to Somali. We were being told Kenya was going to occupy Somali. Today, Somali has a sovereign government with a sitting president. Isn't it? And we know what is happening in Haiti. We have had issues of gangs in Kenya. We have had Mongiki. We have had many bad gangs in Kenya. And the Kenya police have proven to be capable of dealing with that menace. Therefore, this judgment cannot supersede global interest, and the interest of the African Union and the people of Haiti must come first. And that is why we have an organization called Africa for Haiti. And we started this organization last year, even before the Haiti mission came. So when the Kenya government decided to be the leading on this matter, we decided to support them. And we're going to continue to support them because the lives of the Haitians matter. Thank you.
Let's end it. Just 15 seconds, by the way. We gotta step out. Fanya Mambo. I want you to tie that in just 15 seconds with the news right now that despite dispatching 10 billion to buses across the country, 130,000 Form 1 students are still languishing at home without school fee. Take them to school. 15 seconds.
Very quickly, I think Haiti, I said before, and I'm going to say again, we have done so well in our security. I say you can walk on any road in Kenya at midnight, speaking on your expensive phone, and nobody will snatch it. In this country, we have done so well with policing that the only thing left now is to donate our policemen to Haiti. I think something is wrong intrinsically with ourselves. When we started having the conversations about helping Haiti, why are we dealing with the Haiti problem here? Let them bring us...
An African nation.
No. Haiti is not
Kenya
an African...
was the first.
By the way,
Haiti is a Pan-African
Just let him clear. We actually have...
Haiti is near the US, it's near Cuba, it's near Jamaica.
It's CARICOM. CARICOM is there's a formulation.
Let him clear. Let him clear.
He's heckling.
Yes.
And he should have been in Meru. What we needed to do with Haiti is simple. When we started having conversations about Haiti last year, they should have brought us planes of their young men here. We have the best training college in Kiganjo. We have another one. We have the British Army is training in Nanyuki. Let us train their young men here to go and deal with their problems at home. Bursary. Very simple. First and foremost, with a lot of humility, let us abolish bursary in this country. I want you to go and read how much money it costs to run HELB. Look, the MCA has a bursary. The governor has a bursary. The women rep has a bursary. Ata sai senator anaitisha bursary. When you combine all this funny money is called bursary, even the presidential bursary, is in the billions of shillings. Demolish that stupid thing. Take that money and allocate it directly to the
Pretty
school.
much.
So that the fees that would have been 5,000 for one child becomes 2,000. And then we are equal. This nonsense of a person coming and saying, I'm giving you bursary like I'm a small god. Demolish bursary in this country.
That's it. Wangare, but by the way, Sheila, you can start running the bed right now, so we step out of the studio. Wangare, just sentiments of you clearing. This femicide issue is an ongoing issue. Are you concerned that the president has not come out to speak about it?
Very much concerned, because the president is the symbol and the factor of national unity. It is very sad that on Saturday we all, were on the streets of Nairobi and we screamed. And let me also say that spiritually, when women scream, that means that God's wrath is likely to visit that nation because of perpetration of acts of impunity. This is a question of transnational crime. It is a question of cyber crime. It is also a question of homicide and femicide, which is the most extreme act of hate crime against women.
Yes. Guess what? We gotta leave it there. We gotta leave it there. Sheila, as we step out, thank you very much for watching us this morning. Take them back to the time that they joined us right here online at Lookuptv, across all our social media platforms. We gotta step out. I'll call it back again. There's just a lot that we gotta talk about, essentially on how we're starting this year. By the way, the big one is just on how we are performing economically once we come back another day. That's it. Bye.